Hi, I'm Anthony from City Backyard Veggies, back out in the garden today, Sunday, Father's Day. So I'm going to spend the next few hours in my patch just trying to plant out a lot more of my summer seedlings. Now from last week I planted my first round of tomatoes. I'm going to plant my second planting, which I said I was going to plant at the front of my patch. And I have just done most of that at the moment. Still got a few seedlings to plant over in the corner. What I've done is similar to my first planting over in the back, 2 rows 80 centimeters apart, and I've planted seedlings at a 60 centimeter spacings. Now this variety I've planted here is Thunder. The planting in the back was called Dankia. Again, I'm planning on trying to get as much tomato as I can in that early part of spring to beat the fruit flies. And so far so good. These plantings are looking great. Got to do another 2 more seedlings in this corner. I probably can fit another 2. These are my seedlings. Beautiful. Just got to plant them out and then give them a bit of a water. And when it comes to planting my tomatoes, that's my tomato seedling. Just going to rip off those lower leaves, dig my hole and try to bury the tomato as deeply as I can. Want the soil to come right up to that leaf there. Then just covering the soil back across the root, as deep as I can. That's planted. Now that I've planted my seedlings, just got to give them a really deep water, and tomatoes like it water deeply, so I'm going to fill up the trench with as much water as I can and let it really soak. Now I've watered those seedlings and they're looking okay. They are starting to struggle a bit, as you can see, because of the sun. It's actually quite a warm day today. It's 24 degrees. So the tomatoes are a bit stressed. So what I'm going to be doing is adding some mesh and just throwing a little bit of shade cloth over them. Generally like to plant my tomatoes really late in the afternoon. I'm just trying to have a bit of time today, so I have to plant them out at 2 o'clock in the afternoon time. So it's still quite warm here in my patch. Put a little bit of a shade structure over them, let them settle in for the rest of the afternoon, and hopefully over the next few days they really will spruce up, but they should be fine at the moment. Got in the ground I think 10 seedlings, or 12 seedlings in this spot, so it came out okay. I've still got a few final seedlings which I'll just hand out to friends and family. This is my first 2 plantings now for spring, so I won't plant any more tomatoes until my cherries start germinating, and I'll plant them out in about 6 weeks time. I'm back at my second planting of tomatoes, and it's been 6 days since I planted these out, and they're doing quite well, surprisingly. They are getting a little bit of size and quite green, which I'm really happy at seeing. The issue I'm having is that during the week we had those big rains on the Wednesday and Thursday, and you know, veggies in particular just don't like getting wet, especially tomatoes. They don't like getting too wet. So what you're seeing here is just a little bit of drippiness because of more of the water. But hopefully I'll just put a milk crate over this plant, give it a little bit of shade, and it should settle in. Hoping it doesn't rain anymore. Looking at the forecast, there's not going to be any more rain, so I'm expecting these tomatoes to really settle in and start putting on a lot of size. I'm expecting these to double in size almost every week. Over at my other tomatoes, I'll show you that first planting as well. My first planting of tomatoes, these are now 2 weeks in the ground, and they are definitely a lot larger than the first ones, but again they've suffered the same fate as the first planting of tomatoes. These tomatoes here at the back were sitting in a bit of water. I'm not sure if it will bounce back, but if it doesn't, I will replace that tomato and potentially that tomato as well. But hey, that's part of gardening, and it's always good to have a few little seedlings, extra seedlings to plant out, so I'll replace those. I might give them a few more days, maybe 1 or 2 days, to see if they don't really spruce up again. They will get replaced. But besides that, they look okay. Still a little bit of yellow, and maybe next week I'll give them a treatment of Epsom salt, and I'll show you how I do that in a video. but for now they're fine. Interesting to note though, my radishes, interplanted radishes, have germinated, and so they're looking surprisingly really good. Looks decent germination even with all the rain. So happy they will be going well, and I should be harvesting those in about 4 to 6 weeks. During the week as well, before the big rains, I planted more bush beans, and if you remember, about 2 weeks ago, I planted out the first 2.5 rows here of bush beans, and these were the flat beans, the Italian Romanos. Planted 2.5 rows, and then I'm getting another batch of seedlings, and I planted another 2.5 rows here, and now that's used them all up, and they're looking really good. Again, the issues I'm having is that the rain that came in on Wednesday really covered these, and a lot of the soil has bounced up on the plants, but that shouldn't be an issue. They will generally just fall off as the weeks go on. They will get washed away by future rain events. The last 2 rows here are the jade bush beans. They're actually in full sun at the moment, so I might be struggling a bit today. We're going 25-degree weather, so it's a little bit too warm for them, but they'll be doing okay. Now that these beans have been planted out and they've settled in, I need to give them their first round of nitrogen fertilizer. Beans generally don't like too much, but early in their growth that they are at this point now, you need to give them a little bit of liquid fertilizer. I'm just going to give them a little bit of power feed. It can be anything that's nitrogen based, high nitrogen content is perfectly fine. I just find this one easy to get in my context. I dilute the mixture into a watering can. I'm just going to apply it as a kind of a foliar feed on these plants. And it's just a little bit to the base of each of the plants, and that should be plenty. Now I want to apply liquid fertilizer to these plants probably twice, say 2 weeks apart. So I'll apply one now, and at the end of September I'll apply my second application, and that should be plenty. Doesn't need more than that, but I'll make sure that they still stay well watered, especially as they are producing their beans, because they have a habit of aborting their flowers if you don't keep the water up to them. Just finished applying that fertilizer, and I'll let them just dry out a bit, and I'll make sure I apply it in there 2 weeks time, and that's plenty. You can see it's just starting to grow their next true leaves, and they're almost going to start flowering, and they should be flowering in about 4 weeks time. I reckon they'll start flowering these, and I'll be harvesting these. They're quite quick actually. You'll be harvesting them in about late October, so get your beans in. It's really good to get beans in early so you can get that early flush of green beans, and I'll be keeping these going to get at least 2 flushes out of the bush beans before I retire them and plant new ones. Now, although I did plant 2 rows of jade bush beans just over here in the left, I still have a few seedlings left, and I've got another spot that I'm going to plant them out in. Well, I'm over here now at my capsicum patch where I'm going to plant my capsicums and a few leftover bush beans, and I've got 36 seedlings left over of jade bush beans, which I'm going to be planting today. But on top of that, I've got all my leftover capsicums. I've got my jalapenos and my yellow bell capsicums, the Agostinis, and I've also got some Thai chilies that I wanted to plant as well. What I need to do is actually clear this space out, and just to give you a bit of context here, this was where the old broccoli patch was, 3 rows, harvested at about 4 weeks ago, and I've had to clear that, waiting for these chilies to get to the right size. I've planted green feast shelling peas, which I've been harvesting a lot actually from this pit and the patch on the south side of my bed, and they're quite a nice crop if you can look after them. The string trellis sort of collapsed on me, and it's sort of fallen over with the wind, but I'm happy I got a decent crop out of this. I've got 2 to 3 kilos of shelling peas between this row and the row over there. Someone asked recently about yellow or light green colouring in their peas. Look, it's the time of the year where peas are going to die. This is the end of their life, so you'll see that mildew and other diseases just generally start coming up from the bottom and growing. So it's time for these plants to retire, but I'll be keeping these plants just for about another 2 weeks, just to clear the last of those pods. They'll be moving out. So if you are planted peas, no matter what time you plant peas, I find once they hit spring, mildew comes through, the disease comes through, and it's just time to move them on, get them planted out back in March, April next year, just as you start coming into late autumn. I'm going to leave those peas there for now, but I do need to clear what I'll say is a attempt at a spinach patch. I've tried to grow this spinach from seedlings, and I got it planted out here, but it just happened to be in a shadowy part of my garden, so that didn't really produce. But I'm going to clear this bed, see what I can salvage, and we can cook it up for dinner. One of the veggies I really do struggle growing successfully is spinach. I just really struggle to get it to germinate, and I really struggle to get it to grow to any decent size. So I am really trying to learn for next season to see how I can better grow spinach. We would use a lot more spinach in our kitchen if I could grow it. It's just easier sometimes to grow silver beet and perpetual spinach, but my aim next season is to learn how to grow these. These were planted from store-bought seedlings, which I separated and planted them in the ground individually. I did that at about early June, July. I think I just left it too late. So I'm going to give it a go next year in February, March, to plant out a proper patch of spinach, but in a more full sun spot. So I've just finished digging over that bed just to clean it up, and as part of my amendments, or every time I plant out my beds, I always put down a bit of organic matter. This time I'm putting down my homemade compost. Just amazing how many worms you end up getting in these things. It's just, they're everywhere at the moment. It's just the fact, I think it's all the horse manure with a little bit of water, and then plenty of worms sitting there. So that's really a great addition to the bed. 3 barrel loads, and that should be plenty in this space. I'd like to do that before every planting. I'm going to spread that out with a rake, and I'm going to add again 2 amendments. It's with capsicums, very similar to the way I plant tomatoes. First of all, I'll be adding just a handful of chicken manure pellets, not too much, just enough to get them started. I'll be adding a little bit more in future, just part of my fertilizer regime. And on top of that, I'm going to add a little bit of dolomite lime. Again, capsicums are a bit like tomatoes, they will suffer blossom end rot, so having a little bit of calcium in the soil will prevent that from happening. But also on top of that, because I'll be planting that row of peas, they also like the soil to be a bit alkaline. So just over the bed, just a small scoop, not huge, just enough to add that calcium and actually just change that pH level a bit in the soil. Just mixed in all those amendments and raked the bed, and I've gone and put down 2 rows for my planting, and I've left about 40 centimeters. And the reason why I've done that is because I need to net these for fruit flies, and I want to make sure that they're close enough that I can get a 5 meter by 3 meter fruit fly net right around the 2 plantings of capsicums and jalapenos. So the idea is bring them close together, they can support each other, but also then at the same time I can still install 1 net. When it comes to my seedlings, that's my jalapeno. Actually, they grow really fast. I just is actually quite impressed of how nice these seedlings look. This variety is called Jedi, and I grow this one every year, and it's the really big style jalapeno which you can use to stuff, and it produces really well. You can also use it a lot in sauces. Now I make a lot of cowboy candy out of this, but also stuff them with cream cheese and a bit of bacon and in the oven, and they're beautiful as an appetizer. I've got 5 of these to plant out, and I'm going to be putting them just in that back row there. And then I also have my yellow bell type capsicum agostini. Again, these are beautiful seedlings. Like, I'm really happy that I let them stay in their pots just a little bit longer. The ones that I planted before Harley were a little bit smaller than these, and they look doing okay over there, but I'd prefer to have let them put a bit more size and plant them out. So maybe for next year I might wait until mid-September to plant out my first planting of capsicums. But again, I think I've got 4 of these, and I'll be planting them here in the front row. Now I'm going to be planting them out very similar spacings, 40 centimeter spacings in the rows, 40 centimeters apart within the rows. Really happy with the look of these seedlings. Beautiful. I'm really happy. I like the fact that I did pot them on to grow them out a little bit larger. And when it comes to capsicums, just plant up to the root ball. There you go. This Agostini variety is a yellow capsicum variety. It's not as, I find it's not as good as the red capsicums. I find that they don't grow as big, but look, it's nice to have a little bit of separate color in my harvest. Now these will grow green to yellow, probably at about the same time as the red variety that I've planted over there will. It's just a nice addition. My second row, gonna plant my jalapenos. I've actually got 6 jalapeno plants. I'm gonna try to squeeze them in a bit tighter this year. I don't want to waste them, and I might just plant them 6 in the row. So I might get them closer to about that 30 centimeter spacings to get the extra seedlings. But that's my plant. Again, beautiful. I'm really happy this year. Really, I feel I've got the hang of how to grow good looking capsicums and chilies. So again, exactly the same way as I planted out my capsicums and all chilies for that matter. So I finished planting those chilies. 6 jalapeno plants at the left and 3 capsicums on the right. Now I've got to give them a water now, and they should do pretty well in this spot. It's slightly shaded, but as the days get longer, the shading from the lemon tree won't impact them as much, so hoping that they'll do pretty well in this spot. And I have grown capsicums in this spot about 2 years ago, so I'm quite confident it should be okay. Still have those bean seedlings, and I've put 2 rows here, and I don't mind putting them a little bit close to the capsicums because I'm not expecting those beans in about 3 months to be ripped out in time for the chilies to take up a bit of space. Rows are spaced at 20-25 centimeters apart. I'm going to plant the seedlings in the row at about that 5-10 centimeters. I've got 36 seedlings that I need to plant in this spot, so I'm hoping to get 18 and 18, but I don't know, I might need a 3rd row, which I might run. If I need a 3rd row, I'll just put a 3rd row next to the peas there, and those peas, I'll be moving those peas off in about 2 weeks time, so that area will start opening up. And the idea is that I will start planting beans all the way to the fence, and this will be my second part of my bean patch. Now all those seedlings now have been planted, and I've watered them in, and this is the final result. Row of jalapenos, row of capsicums, 2 rows of string beans. So now I'm just going to put a little bit of cap protection, a little bit of mesh on top of them, and I'll keep looking after them, and I'll start giving them their first fertilizer in probably about 2 weeks time, and I'll keep you up to date as to how they progress and the amendments and the side dressing that I add at later times. Now before I wrap this video, just wanted to give you an update on my Chinese cabbage, my wombox. And I actually thought I was going to beat the season and try to get a late crop of wombox harvested, but unfortunately everything is bolted. And if I show you my main crop, you can just see everything has just gone to seed. So every head, probably got 2 rows here of 10 or 12, so I was hoping for a big harvest, and at the time thought I was going to make it. They just sort of didn't grow as fast. I couldn't get the heads, they weren't forming fast enough to beat the longer daylight hours. Now I did find that these ones did struggle because they are in the shade of the lemon tree, and in part shade, they just don't grow as fast as I was hoping that they would. My other crop that I planted 2 weeks later after this is still looking okay, but yeah, I need to harvest these today. They are again starting to bolt. You can just see that they've got a nicer, firmer head, so I'm be able to get at least something out of these ones. But again, telltale signs of bolting, this kind of opening up. These ones may have actually bolted. What I'll be doing is actually clearing out the 8 that are here. These ones can be harvested, and I'm going to try to salvage as much as I can from that. The ones on the left there, looks like they're going to be going to chicken feed, or if I look, I'll open them up, and if they seem to have some sort of a small head, I may save them, but most of it will go to chicken feeds. But that's the game you play, especially with, you know, late season winter crops, especially around cabbages. If it is to, if you don't grow them that little bit early enough, they just bolt before they come harvest. Harvested that other row, and look, the heads are still okay. Just started to bolt a little bit, but still quite firm. So these ones can be used. Some of them are a bit further on, as you can see just there, but that's all right. These ones I've sort of salvaged, and I'll be able to share them around with family. But that other crop, I'm gonna make a call on it, rip it all out, feed the chickens. Thank you very much for joining me in this video. I really appreciate your support. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave me a comment on this video, or send me a message via my socials, TikTok and Instagram. Thank you again for watching. I hope to see you in the next one.